Good evening, everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Younes. I am working in Abdullah Fuad company as application specialist. I will be host today for our webinar. It's my pleasure and honor to welcome all the attendants here for joining us today for our virtual webinar, CBC Flag and Morphology Research, sponsored from Abdullah Fuad company and Midray. Hope all will get benefits of this webinar. Our webinar held will be collaboration with our partner Midray that consider one of the top 3 company leading hematology solution in the world. So let's start our agenda today. So nowadays there are many challenges facing hematology technologists for identifying the blood cells counts abnormality, such as mature granulocytes, blasts, nucleated RBCs. These challenges to be improved. The aim of this webinar to overcome these challenges to improve the quality of CBC reports and to better identify these abnormal cells. So let's start to present our agenda today. Our agenda will start with Dr. Winen for her topic, blood morphology cases and study. Then we'll move to our local speaker, Dr. Muhammad Shukri, for his topic, CBC flag and blood smear review. At the end of this session, we will have a presentation with Dr. Younes Al-Isa to present Midray high-end hematology solution. At the end of this agenda, if you have any questions, please type it in chat box. So let me introduce our speaker deeply. We will start with Dr. Winen Tai. She's a chief physician, MD doctoral supervisor. She's a deputy director of Department of Clinical Laboratory, director of UNEN Molecular Diagnostics Center. She has more than 20 scientific papers and 1 monograph and 4 national textbooks. Our local speaker, Dr. Muhammad Shukri, he has a doctoral degree in clinical pathology at Ain Shams University. He is diagnostic hematologist and hematopathologist consultant. He's a head of hematology section laboratory and blood bank in King Abdulaziz Specialist Hospital, Taif. At the last, Mr. Younes Al-Isa, he's IVD product specialist. So let's start with Dr. Winen for her topic. So welcome, Dr. Winen. Please share your screen.
Hello, everyone. I feel great honor to giving this lecture. Today, my topic is blood cells morphology cases study. Everyone knows examination of peripheral blood cells morphology can make very significant contribution to the diagnosis. Examination of peripheral blood cell morphology can save a great deal of time and money. In my lecture, I will share 2 cases to demonstrate it. Examination of peripheral blood smear. In the clinical laboratory, CBC is one of the most frequently ordered and most time-honored laboratory tests. CBC is an abbreviation of the complete blood count. Nowadays, CBC is fully automated and highly reproducible. Automated CBC consists of a variety of hematological data directly related to the health of the bone marrow. Correct interpretation of automated CBC can determine type and the severity of blood cell abnormality. Provides useful information for provisional diagnosis of red blood cell, white blood cell, and platelet diseases. When there is some abnormal results in CBC, maybe we should examine the smear. A well-made and well-stained smear can provide estimates of cell count, proportions of the different type of WBC. We can also evaluate morphology of red blood cell, white blood cell, and platelet. And the microscope of observing, we can check for WBC's distribution and estimate the number present of WBC. We can perform the differential count of WBC. We can examine for morphological abnormality of WBC. In the peripheral smear, we can observe red blood cell morphology. We can observe the size and shape of red blood cell. We can evaluate relative hemoglobin content. We can observe polychromatophenia and inclusion in red blood cell, and Rouleau's formation or agglutination. And the microscope examine, we can evaluate platelet morphology. We can estimate platelets number present. We can examine for morphological abnormalities. Next, I'll share case 1. A 12-year-old boy present to his doctor's office with complaints of weakness, fatigue for 2 years prior to the office visit. He has severe, steady right upper quadrant abdominal pain lasting for 3 hours. On physical examination, he appeared very pale with slightly ecteric skin. His spleen was enlarged, and the liver could not be palpated. His mother has a history of a hereditary phagocytosis and took a splenectomy. This is his computed tomographic scan. His CT scan shows the spleen was enlarged. The liver and the lymph nodes were normal. He had several gallstones. Itemize his CBC report. The WBC was decreased mildly. RBC and hemoglobin was decreased moderate. RBC indexes MCH, MCV, MCHC were normal. The reticulocyte percentage and absolute count were significantly high. On basis of this data, we consider he has the normocytic anemia with reticulocytosis. In his blood film, we can see some cells with normal paina, but we can find moderately numerous spherocytes. This site is a spherocyte. These spherocytes, their relative count is 13%. This spherocyte like the normal red blood cell central panel. The diameter, their diameter is less than a normal red blood cell. So this spherocyte may appear smaller than a discal site. In this case, we also can see some polychromatic microcytes and other poikilocytes. So this case is a lomocytic anemia with a spherocytosis and a reticulocytosis. His chemical results show total bilirubin and indirect bilirubin was moderately raised. LDH was increased. His urine is normal in color. Urinalysis show no bilirubin, but urobilinergy is positive. His folic acid and vitamin B12 levels were normal. Ferritin was mildly raised. So we can exclude iron deficiency, folic acid deficiency, and vitamin B12 deficiency. Then what is the most likely diagnosis? What is your next diagnostic step? Because this case is a normocytic anemia with spherocytosis and reticulocytosis. Total bilirubin and indirected bilirubin, urine, urobilinergy, and LDH were abnormal. Combined all of this information, the suspected diagnosis is hemolytic anemia. The next step will to be find the cause of hemolytic anemia. We should make a specific diagnosis. There are many causes of hemolysis anemia. They are autoimmune hemolytic anemia, erythrocyte membrane defect disease, erythrocyte enzymatic defect disease, hemoglobinopathy, or thalassemia. But think of the patient's mother has a hereditary spherocytosis history. So the most likely diagnosis is hereditary spherocytosis. Now he has some further tests to do. His osmotic fragility was increased. The osmotic fragility test confirmed the presence of osmotically fragile cells, but does not distinguish between hereditary spherocytosis and autoimmune hemolytic anemia or other causes of spherocytosis. We should do more tests. His Coombs test results show the direct antiglobulin test and the indirect antiglobulin test are all negative. His hemoglobin electrophoresis showed the proportion of hemoglobin A was 96.6%. Fetal hemoglobin and hemoglobin A2 are normal. On the basis of all of this data, especially the positive osmotic fragility test, lactate direct antiglobulin, and hemoglobin electrophoresis. The diagnosis of hereditary spherocytosis was confirmed. Now let's look at the diagnosis of hereditary spherocytosis. A positive family history of hereditary spherocytosis. About 3/4 of hereditary spherocytosis (HS) cases show an autosomal dominant inheritance. These patients may take splenectomy, cholecystectomy in childhood or early adulthood. B. Signs and symptoms: pain, jaundice, and splenomegaly. Hereditary spherocytosis. Part of hereditary spherocytosis patients may have no symptoms. C. Laboratory diagnosis. CBC, variable degree of anemia. Reticulocytosis, sometimes increased MCHC. Peripheral blood smear. Spherocytosis. Hyperbilirubinemia. Abnormal osmotic fragility. EMA binding studies, specialized gel electrophoresis, sequencing analysis. But EMA binding studies, specialized gel electrophoresis, and the sequencing analysis. These tests are not common, maybe not available in small laboratory. This boy was taken the splenectomy and the cholecystectomy on September 7. After operation, all abnormal lab results were gradually improved. This is reticulocyte dynamic curve. This is indirect bilirubin dynamic curve. This is hemoglobin dynamic curve. This is total bilirubin dynamic curve. From all of this dynamic curve showing all this data are returning to normal. I will share another case. A 62-year-old woman. She complains of lightheadedness, fatigue for a few months. Over the last 2 days, she noticed excess bleeding from her gum with brushing her teeth. She has a history of epistaxis. She has no family history of bleeding problem. On physical examination, numerous peritechia and ecchymosis. Her abdomen was mildly tender without palpable liver, spleen, or mass. She has a fever 2 days after being admitted to a hospital. This is her CBC report. Platelets were decreased severely. WBC was normal. RBC and hemoglobin was decreased moderately. RBC indexes, MCV MCH, MCHC were normal. The reticulocyte percentage and absolute count were significantly high. On basis of this data, we consider she has the normocytic anemia with reticulocytosis and thrombocytopenia. And the microscope, you can see many schistocytes. These are schistocytes. These schistocytes appear fragmented. They are small and irregular. You also can see these larger blue-gray cells. They called polychromatophenic red cells. They are really reticulocytes. This is her peripheral blood smear morphology report. This report shows WBC count is normal, consisting of neutrophils with immature form, limited to bands and metamyelocytes. Red blood cell morphology was notable for severe poikilocytosis and anisocytosis, many schistocytes, and polychromatophenic red cells. Platelet count is no. Her urine is normal in color. Urinalysis show no bilirubin, but urobilinogen is positive. Urine erythrocyte and urine protein is positive. This is her coagulation test report. PT, APTT, TT, FIB is normal. The dimer and FDP is increased. Her chemical test show total bilirubin and indirect bilirubin was moderately raised. LDH was increased severely. His urine function is normal. So, what is the most likely diagnosis of this case? What is your next diagnostic step? Combine her history, bleeding history, combine her CBC results, anemia, thrombocytonemia, and peripheral blood smear findings, schistocytes, and hemolytic anemia, reticulocytes, indirect bilirubin, and LDH. So we think the most likely diagnosis is microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, MAHA. Schistocyte is increased in this woman's peripheral blood smear. Schistocyte is an fragmented red blood cell. In acquired hemolytic anemia, some of the erythrocytes are fragmented and have various irregular shapes. Eggshells, hermit, triangle, or crescent. They are all called schistocytes. Schistocytosis may be an indication of change in the capillary system, or else of DIC. Microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, MAHA, developed in the course of TTP. In children, they called hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS, or in pregnant women, HAPR syndrome. This is schistocyte. There are numerous schistocytes in this smear. Thrombotic thrombocytopenia purpura. TTP is an abbreviation of thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura. TTP is a relatively rare disorder with an incidence of 3.7 per million. Hemolysis, red cell shearing from platelet thromba formed in the microvasculature. Clinical content, thrombocytopenia, hemolytic anemia, renal dysfunction, neurologic changes, and fever. Before the use of plasma exchange, survival from acquired TTP was 10%. The high mortality without treatment creates urgency to begin plasma exchange. Physiology of TTP. Van Wiener-Braun factor, VWF. It is a factor integral to platelet aggregation. VWF is initially produced as unusually large VWF multimer, ULVWF. Nowadays, ULVWF is cleaved by a protease specific for VWF termed RDAM13. Lacking of RDAM13 results accumulation of ULVWF, platelet thrombi forming, and obstruction of the macrocirculatory vessel. Diagnosis criteria for TTP. Greater than 4% schistocyte on the peripheral blood smear. De novo, prolonged and progressive thrombocytopenia with platelet count decreased. Sudden and persistent increase in serial LDH, decreased in hemoglobin concentration, or an increase in transfusion requirement, a decrease in serial hemoglobin level. So this woman done a RDAM13 activity test. Her RDAM13 activity is decreased, and her RDAM13 autoantibody is positive. So this woman's diagnosis is required TTP. This is a chart for comparison of DIC, TTP, and ITP. DIC is secondary to some other processes, such as sepsis, trauma. DIC's clinical cause can be relatively mild indolent causes or severe life-threatening processes. DIC often has ongoing coagulation, and fibrolysis can cause thrombosis or hemorrhage. So we also can get a prolonged PT and APTT. ITP is an antiplatelet antibody leading to platelet destruction. ITP often has isolated thrombocytopenia. Its PT and APTT is normal. This is comparison of TTP and HUS. HUS presents very similar to TTP, with acute renal failure, microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, and thrombocytopenia. Clinically, it may appear to be TTP limited to the kidney, but the pathogenetic mechanism and the treatment may different from TTP. HUS occurs most often in children after diarrhea illness, often with the hemorrhage strain of E. coli O. Treatment of TTP of HUS is supportive, and the plasma exchange for HUS has not shown to be useful. TTP therapy for congenital form TTP, monthly transfusion of plasma may sufficient to replete RDAMS13. For acquired form TTP, steroid, aggressive plasmapheresis can remove about 1/3 of body's IgG per double volume exchange. Replace large amounts of ADAMS13 may remove bad large molecular weight multimers. Anti-CD20. Conclusion. Hemolytic anemia can be recognized by history and physical examination. Some lab tests can help us to confirm hemolysis anemia. Peripheral smear, especially some specific morphology, can get further tests. The specific blood cell morphology can provide very helpful pointers. An integrated clinical and laboratory assessment is of major importance in these cases. Thank you for your time.
Muhammad, you are mute. Yes.
Thank you for your valuable information. Hope all attendants will get these benefits. So let me move to our local speaker, Dr. Muhammad Shukri. So the stage is yours, Doctor. Please. Okay, Doctor, you can start.
Dr. Muhammad, you are mute. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everyone. My talk will include the topic CBC flags and the peripheral blood smear review and their clinical utility for diagnosis and the correction of different spurious CBC results. The objectives of the talk will include orientation of the commonly clinically important CBC spurious results, the use of CBC flags and the peripheral blood film review for proper diagnosis of spurious CBC results, correction of spurious CBC results, reporting of spurious CBC results, and finally, there will be a short home message. It is essential to detect spurious CBC instrument results that may be of clinical significance. The use of automated histograms together with CBC flags can often provide clues in identifying spurious and erroneous CBC parameters. Sources of erroneous CBC values that result from inherent interference with instrument measurements must be detected and CBC results corrected to provide and report an accurate CBC results to the patient. Here we'll talk about the common important CBC spurious CBC results that will include spurious hemoglobin results, spurious RBC results, spurious platelet results, and the CBC with overrange. Spurious
We are sorry for this technical network issue. Just I will back to you. Dr. Shukri.
Yes.
Doctor, please complete your presentation because you are.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, doctor, you can start.
We stop here. Yes, we'll continue now. As I mentioned, yes, as I mentioned, we'll select some important situations with spurious CBC, and we'll see how the CBC flags and the peripheral blood film will help us in the proper diagnosis and the correction of this condition. First of all, the spurious hemoglobin result or hemoglobin turbidity. As I said, this condition occurred due to hypertriglyceridemia or hyperbilirubinemia, and this condition will produce false interference with hemoglobin, will leads to falsely high hemoglobin results, and MCH and the MCHC indices will also increase. This condition, as I mentioned, will be associated with a specific RBC flag in the CBC analyzer, hemoglobin turbidity or interference, and the MCHC in this condition will be more than 360 gram per liter. Actually, the hemoglobin turbidity or interference will be corrected by performing plasma replacement of the specimen, and this is achieved by doing heavy centrifugation of the sample at high spin, 3000 RPM for at least 5 minutes, and then we will replace the plasma by an equal volume of the saline. Then the sample is mixed properly and retested, and then we will achieve accurate result of the hemoglobin, MCH and the MCHC, and this result should be reported from the last result. This is an example of one patient presented with hypertriglyceridemia. On the left side, we'll find falsely increased hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is 236 gram per liter, and the MCH is very high, and the MCHC is also very high. MCHC is 523 gram per liter, and this condition should be correctly diagnosed and managed. Down here in the report, we'll see the flag of the RBCs. This flag is turbidity or hemoglobin interference. So this one will, with this condition, will start the correction, and the correction is achieved by, as I mentioned, the plasma replacement. After doing the proper plasma replacement and retesting the patient sample, the hemoglobin is dramatically decreased from 236 down to 160, and also MCH and MCHC is dramatically decreased to the correct values. MCHC specifically is dramatically decreased from 523 down to 348. So here, when the MCHC is decreased below 360 gram per liter, by this we achieved a complete correction of the hemoglobin turbidity, and these results should be reported. One of the most important issue is to write a footnote by what is the action specifically done for the correction of this spurious CBC result. This footnote should be attached with the CBC report, and they should be presented to the treating clinician. As example, we can write here in the footnote, hemoglobin, MCH, and the MCHC values provided by doing a plasma replacement of the sample due to hemoglobin interference. The second most important situation is the spurious RBC result, and here we'll take RBC agglutination and RBC fragments or schistocytes. We'll see how we are going to diagnose this condition correctly by using the flags, by using the peripheral blood smear examination, and also we'll see how to correct this condition efficiently. RBC's agglutination occurs due to presence of cold RBC's agglutinins in the patient sample, which reacts with erythrocyte antigen. during slide preparation causing RBCs autoagglutination. In this case, warming the blood sample to 37 degrees centigrade before making a slide, this can eliminate totally this problem. Agglutination can also cause abnormalities in the automated blood counter, particularly with MCV RBCs count, as the RBCs clumps are counted here as one single large red blood cell. This condition will cause false low RBC counts and hematocrit percentage and false high MCV, MCH, and MCH result. And here MCHC will be more than 360 gram per liter. RBC's agglutination will be associated with a specific RBC flag, which is RBC agglutination that will appear on the cell counter. And also, as I mentioned, MCHC, we can notice in the indices that MCHC will be more than 360 gram per liter. And by examination of the peripheral smear, we will find the agglutination, RBC's agglutination. Many agglutination will be seen through the peripheral blood smear examination. And these agglutination are observed throughout all areas of the blood smear from the feathered edge to the start of the smear. Here on the right side, we'll see the normal appearance of the RBCs. They are biconcave cells with average diameter 7 micrometer, and in the peripheral smear will appear just touching each other or just overlapping each other as they appear on the right side. On the left side, we'll see abnormal arrangement of the RBCs. This is in case of RBC agglutination. The RBCs will appear as clusters of cells or groups of cells that could be noticed from the head to the tail of the peripheral smear. How to correct this situation? The results of the CBC in presence of RBC's agglutination is spurious and cannot be reported as such. So we have to go for correction of these results. How can we achieve that one? The problem is due to cold agglutinin. So by warming of the patient sample in water bath or by using warmer at 37 degrees centigrade for at least 15 minutes or more till the MCHC returns back to normal and be less than 360 gram per liter. This is the crucial solution of this spurious condition. If MCHC after warming of the patient sample and the testing of the patient sample is still more than 360 gram per liter, then we have to perform a plasma replacement of the patient sample using warm saline. And after warming of the patient sample, mix the sample properly and retest the patient sample and report the values of the CBC of the post-incubated or saline replaced sample. This is the correct values that should be reported. Here we have one of our patient presented to our hospital with autoimmune hemolytic anemia with cold agglutinin. On the left side, show the results before correction, before incubation, as we will see why RBCs are low, and there is discrepancy between the count of the RBCs and the hemoglobin. Also, hematocrit values are low. It is 20.9, which is dissociated and not corresponding with the hemoglobin values. MCV will be a little bit increased. MCH also will be increased. And the most important indices is the MCHC is here 622. 622. The RBC flag, a specific flag that will appear is the RBC agglutination. In such a situation, we have to go shift to the peripheral blood smear examination. By doing the examination, we will see the RBC's agglutination. Then immediately we have to start, as I mentioned, the incubation of the sample. This patient sample was incubated for 15 minutes at 37 degrees centigrade, and when we checked the result by testing or retesting of the sample, the MSHC dramatically fall to 320 gram per liter. So we achieve complete correction of this situation, and here we can notice that RBCs is increased and the hematocrit is increased, MCV a little bit corrected, and the MSHC also decreased to the correct values. After complete correction, as I mentioned before, a footnote must be written to the clinician with the action taken for the correction of the spurious CBC result. As we can write, RBC count, hematocrit percent, and the RBC indices values are reported after warming of the patient sample at 37 degrees centigrade due to presence of autoagglutination. The second most important spurious RBC result is the presence of RBC fragment or schistocytes or keratocytes. The RBC fragments occur in cases of microangiopathic hemolytic anemia, such as thrombotic thrombocytopenic purpura, TTP, hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS, disseminated intravascular coagulation, DIC, in cases with severe burns or using artificial valves, or etc. RBC fragments or schistocytes may cause, in some situation, pseudothrombocytosis or false high platelet count. It is associated with a specific RBC flag, which is RBC fragments or schistocyte that will appear also in the report of the CBC, and the presence of schistocyte in the peripheral smear will trigger the correction of the false platelet count or pseudothrombocytosis. As we see here on the right side and the left side, these are images of one of our patients with schistocytes. Usually the schistocytes are very small. Usually they are less than the half of the RBC with loss of the central valor. And in such condition, the schistocyte count is reported as a percentage from the RBC count from the peripheral smear review, and the platelet estimation must to be performed from the peripheral smear. When performing a manual platelet estimate, the platelet count is determined by counting the number of the platelets in 10 fields and calculating the average per field and applying the following formula. Number of platelet counted to be divided by a number of the fields examined by high power field multiplied by 15 or 20. This will give the platelet estimate. Another important spurious CBC result is the spurious platelet results, and this will include two common situations: pseudothrombocytopenia with falsely decreased platelet count, and the pseudothrombocytosis
Dr. Muhammad, you are mute.
Yeah, you can continue, Doctor.
Okay now?
Yes, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. For spurious, as I mentioned, spurious platelet results, we have two common conditions: pseudothrombocytopenia and pseudothrombocytosis. Automated instruments generate platelet flags and histograms, alerting the operator to potential errors or abnormal results. Platelet flags and interpretation of histograms trigger microscopic smear review. Pseudo-thrombocytopenia or false platelet count. In all cases of thrombocytopenia with platelet count less than 100 multiplied by 10 to the power of 9 per liter, peripheral blood smear should be examined to exclude all causes of pseudo-thrombocytopenia, such as giant platelets, platelet clumps or aggregates, and platelet satellitism. Platelet flags as platelet clumps or aggregates and giant platelets will trigger immediately the microscopic smear review. On the right side here, this is the image of the appearance of the platelets under the microscope by examining the peripheral smear. The platelets are very small in size, ranging from 1.5 up to 4 micrometer. And these platelets could increase in size to be as named the large platelets when the size of platelet is from 4 up to 7 micrometer. But when giant platelets are produced, like here in the left side, we'll see large, not large platelet. This is giant platelets. The platelet size is almost equal to the RBC size, about 7 micrometer in diameter. Here in this situation, the platelet will not be counted as platelets by CBC analyzer using the impedance technique, and the platelet will be counted here as RBCs, and the result platelet count will be falsely decreased, producing pseudo thrombocytopenia. So most important here to examine the peripheral smear in such cases. This is another 2 examples of causes of pseudo thrombocytopenia. On the right side, we will see platelet clumps or aggregates. The platelets here will appear as clusters or group of the cells. They are not any more discrete platelets. They are in clusters. And here, the cause of this could be pre-analytical due to improper mixing of the sample, or could be due to another cause like EDTA-induced thrombocytopenia, due to reaction of the patient specimen to the EDTA when used as anticoagulant. On the left side, we will see platelet satellitism, where the platelets will surround the neutrophil and they will not be counted as platelets, and these 2 conditions will produce pseudo-thrombocytopenia. If giant platelets are detected, the correction is done by performing platelet estimation from the peripheral smear. And if the platelet satellitism or platelet clumping or aggregate is detected, it may be helpful to do a sample vortex of the sample vortex to disaggregate the platelets, or the second solution is to recollect the specimen using 3.2% trisodium citrate as an anticoagulant to prevent the adherence of platelets to a neutrophil or to each other. But here, if we are going to use the sodium citrate as a solution, the platelet count from this solution should be corrected by the dilution effect of the anticoagulant used. This is one example of our patient presented with severe thrombocytopenia. The platelet is 6,000, and we can notice here the platelet flag, specific platelet flag, platelet clumps, and also thrombocytopenia. When we see that, we have to examine immediately the peripheral smear of that patient. And when we examine the peripheral smear, the many giant platelets are seen, and we did the platelet estimation, and the platelet finally is 203,000, and this is the figure that we reported to the treating clinician. And also here, as we mentioned before, it is very crucial and important to write a footnote to the treating clinician with the action taken for the correction of the spurious platelet results, as platelet estimation or performing sample vortex to disaggregate the platelets. The second spurious platelet result is pseudothrombocytosis, and this occurs in some cases of schistocytes or fragmented RBCs with excessive schistocytes here, or severely microcytic RBCs, as in cases of beta thalassemia major. In some cases, we can find false elevation of the platelet count due to these two conditions, and here peripheral blood smear should be examined to exclude this situation. And here we have to correct the spurious platelets by doing platelet estimation from the peripheral smear. And finally, we have to write the footnote to the treating clinician that the platelet count is corrected by platelet estimation. On the right side, this is case of beta thalassemia major. Actually, the hemoglobin in this patient was 4.5 gram per deciliter, and here we can notice the severely microcytic RBCs. Some of these RBCs could be counted in the CBC analyzer using impedance technique, could be counted as platelets and give rise to the false platelet count, pseudothrombocytosis. Or we can have schistocytosis. In some cases, the schistocytes, as I mentioned, could be counted as platelets in impedance-dependent CBC analyzers. The last condition here, when we have CBC with overrange. Overranged CBC is the CBC result that exceeds the analytical measuring range or AMR of the CBC analyzer or the instrument. In such a condition, it is very important to diagnose, and in such a condition, we have to correct the result before reporting the result coming from the analyzer. Here, the CBC counts are beyond the linearity of the instrument, and they are unreliable and invalid. We cannot report these figures. How to correct this situation? The correction of this CBC spurious result is done by diluting the CBC sample with the least dilution using normal saline, or by using the instrument diluent sheath, and mix properly the sample and retest the sample, the diluted sample, followed by multiplication of the result by the dilution factor used. And this is one example of a patient having the secondary polycythemia presented to our hospital with RBCs 10.240, 10.2 millions. And in such a situation, we should, as I mentioned, do correction, as this RBCs count is exceeding the instrument linearity or AMR by using the saline. Actually, we use here the least dilution, which is 1+1. We did 1 in total volume of 2, and the resultant RBCs count is 5.14, means 5,000,000.1, and this result was multiplied by the dilution factor, which is 2, and finally the result is reported to the clinician. This is another example of white blood cell overrange. This is a case of lymphoproliferative disorder presented to our hospital with white blood cells 487, more than 487,000, and this figure exceeds the linearity of the instrument, which is 400,000. So it is this result is unreliable, and we have to correct, and we did a correction by dilution with saline 1 to 1 plus 1, and we multiply the result by the dilution factor, which is 2. And finally, we have to write the footnote as usual to the treating clinician, informing him that we have spurious CBC result, and this spurious CBC result is corrected by doing the sample dilution. Finally, we come to the important home message. The first is to tell you that all cases of spurious CBC results should be diagnosed correctly using the CBC flags in association with the histograms, CBC indices, and the most importantly is examination of the peripheral smear, followed by doing the proper correction that should be written to the clinician as footnote with the CBC results. And the second most important message is we have to verify the CBC flags from the instruments before clinical use or utilization of these flags. When we have a new CBC analyzer, the flags of the analyzer should be verified. So verification should be done for the CBC instrument flags of important clinical utility before its clinical use, such as normoblastis, IG, immature granulocytes and shift to left, platelet clumps, giant platelets, schistocytes, RBC agglutination, presence of blast, atypical lymphocytes, and etc. Thank you for attendance. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Shukri, for a great presentation. It really helped us to how to interpretation the result, and really we received a lot of these cases, and you help us how to do the corrective action for these abnormal cases. So now let's move to the last speakers, Mr. Yunus. He's a Mindray IVD product specialist. Can you share your screen, please?
Okay. Hello, everyone. So let me introduce myself. So I am Yunus Isa. I'm a product specialist from Mindray. I'm based in Morocco. I belong to the Morocco office here in Africa, North region. Right now, it's a pleasure for me to support you. Have this deep discussion after these two important topics for these important speakers. Now it's my turn to present of you our solution for the hematology, because our solution we need to meet different challenges that you face in your laboratory. That's why we call it solution a product. So let's start by the challenge that you have all the laboratory now asking for, because based in your voice, the voice of customer, we try to improve our solution and to give you more advantage to solve your routine work and how to do better your report, especially now we will discuss about hematology. So let's start by the first that you face it on. So it's the high false positive ratio. All of laboratories now, they are not like this high false positive ratio. That's why they need to use some products with reliable results. When we have the positive result is a positive, we can do smear. Or if we have some positive samples, how can the product help us to report these positive samples? How these products can give us more facilities or more options to report easy this kind of positive ratios, high positive sample. So also, as you know, for some patients they have NRBCs in the count. Normally, this NRBC caused the incorrect WBCs, give you high count of WBC. That's why you should, if you don't have a dedicated measurement for NRBC, you should do this to report this patient results, or to do another technique to count the NRBC. Also, as you know, as we said, we saw before in previous presentation, the encourage platelet results. So we need a solution how to help us to solve problem of platelet and report our available platelets. Also, sometimes we have a few kilocyte testing. We need products with this kind of counting that we can report easily and quickly the reticulocyte counting, with also the option of the body fluid. So it's better to have automatic body fluid counting. So that's why this is also a big challenge for the laboratory to do it manually in the smears. Also, some limited volume samples, like pediatric samples, and so that we can only find a few volumes. So we are faced to a tubes with only a few ml or milliliters for volume that we need a product who aspirates as small as possible for the volume and give us more parameters. Also, short well-trained technicians. So as you know, the technicians are very busy, so that's why we need to give them a good product with a good training. So that's why it's better to have a solution for this problem too. And also higher and higher workload. We start as, for example, 100 samples per day, and by 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 year, the activity become bigger. So we need a solution that can meet this requirement and can upgrade easier. Also, all of us, we need more options, more facilities, more solution, but a limited product budget. That's why this all voice of customer, we tried to collect it and to give it the solution that we can meet all of these requirements. And this is the basic of my presentation today, to show you how Mindre products, especially for hematology, how we can help and give you more solution for this kind of problem that you can face it. So let's start by our solution for the hematology. So as you can see here, my slide, as you can see, we have different kind of products. Can meet different level of the laboratories or the customers. So starting with 3 parts as small products for a few samples per day, and also for only a CBC without any differentiation or high parameters. And also for some limited budget and also limited space, we have that model is 5,150 as a small and compact product for 5 parts, so we can report all the leukocyte parameters with the efficiency and also with the high throughput. And this is good for as a backup machine, also for some small labs with the limited budget and also space. Also, we have this model is with autoloader that we can charge automatically continuously samples, and we can give the 5 parts the leukocytes. Also, with the important thing is now that we can run the CRP whole blood. As you know, we have some samples. We can do CBC plus CRP in 1 minute, and we can report the results. And for the big part now, for the high volume customer, we have what we call BC 6000, including BC 6000, 60,200, BC 6800, all, and 6,800 plus. So this is what we call the high-end solution for high-end volume. So the difference between BC 6000 and 6,000 is give you only an RBC and without reticulocytes. So for example, for patients, for the customer need reticulocytes and also optical counting for the platelets is better to choose one product from BC 6200 and above, and also our modular system for Cal 6000 or the Cal 8000. So I will give you for the next slides some important information for our solution and for each process. So now I will give you more detail about BC 6200 is a standalone machine with a high throughput for 110 tests per hour. With reticulocytes, only 65 tests by hour. That's not only reticulocytes, but also platelet object with aggregation platelet that we can see later. And also in the same machine with the same reagents, we can test the body fluid with a high throughput, also 40 tests per hour. Here we have a capacity of loading samples. It's around 50 tubes. Is a 5 racks or 5 support for 10 tubes for each, and with continuous loading. So that's why when the first tube is finished, we can load another one. So it's a continuous here for high work. Our technology, we call it SF technology. Why SF cube? Because we base it in the optical technology with scattered light. That's why we have the first S letter, and the fluorescence. Fluorescence, that means we have the information using one special dye to have information about acid nucleic inside the cells, about DNA or RNA information that we know, and we can identify the maturity of the cells, and we can have this information to have a more differentiation, as you can see here, from cells to cells, from leukocytes to monocytes, for eosinophile granulocytes, and also all kind of cells. We have this kind of differentiation, and the two signals for the scatter signals, we have the complexity, internal complexity of the cells, and also the size of the cells. Big cells. That's why we can also use it for the different kind of cells only by use the size. Based in this tree based, we can have a 3D differentiation. So we can see our differentiation or of our cells from 3 different angles is like a cube. That's why we call SF cube. And this technology gives also more advantage, for example, for the lipid prevention. As you can see here, if we can use only 2D, maybe sometimes the lipid can hide some cells or differentiation and give you a false results. That's why we use this 3D differentiation. We can have more of reliable results for differentiation. Also, as I told you before, in our CBC, we have an RBC in everyone. Every sample we run with WBC, we can have also an RBC if we have, for example, pediatric samples, or for some samples with diagnostic of hemolytic anemia, that we can find more reticulocytes and more NRBC, the blood, peripheral blood. So that in this case of samples, if we don't have this option, all this NRBC will count as WBC, and we will report false results for the high WBC count that we can call the false results. By using this technology and this counting NRBC for HCBC, so we can reduce the ratio of microscopy review. So that's why every samples with high NRBC or a count of NRBC we can report directly, don't need to see and validate by microscopy. So this is also very important. Also, why we call it reliable platelet results, because as you know, all technology now using only the size of cells for platelets and RBC. As you know, the technology used is the impedance, so we based only on the size. So small cells is the platelets, and big size and big cells is RBC. That's the problem we face it, where we have samples with large platelets or fragment RBC. So if we based only the size, we cannot know if it's large platelet or fragment RBC, or sometimes for some aggregation of the platelets, 2, 3, 5 platelet aggregations between them, and we cannot know if it's a big platelets or aggregation platelets or only a small RBC. So in this technology, we cannot have a good result. So we will report a false result. That's why we move to optical counting. And with this optical counting, what is important? We have a special dye, and we will make a staining of platelets. That's why, especially also for the immature platelet fraction, we have a special dye for the platelet. And if we have, as you know, there is no a significant information on RBC. In RBC, so that's why we have a low signal in fluorescence for RBC, and that's for platelets, especially immature platelets, we have a higher signal that we can find RBC fragments, and big platelet or immature platelets is very, very differentiated, and we can report a reliable result. And also machine give us two more parameters: RBC fragments, RBC, including schizocytes and fragments of the RBC, and also EPF, immature platelet fraction. It's also very important to know how is the Moyer oasis give us information about the new platelets and immature platelets, and if there is a central thrombocytopenia or peripheral thrombocytopenia. So it is also very important for platelets optical. Also, one technology that only in gray is the platelet disaggregation. We use a special reagent and also special technology to hit the sample and to have a special vortex mixing just to disassociate and disaggregate the platelet aggregation after the activation. And we have a special reagent who block the receptor, the activation in the three-way and three-pathway cationic pathway and triosinic pathway, and also glycoprotein pathway. So by using this technology, as you can see, we can disassociate and disaggregate the platelets, and we block, and we cannot, then that platelet cannot return and aggregate between each of them. And using this technology, we can have accurate results with especially for the some aggregation sample. And the case that you know, all of you, the EDTA dependent pseudothrombopenia, that if you face this problem in your laboratory, the regular method that you use the CITRA tube, and we report these low results of platelet by CITRA tube. And here, this is a study, and we can compare our platelet aggregation using optical counting and this special dye with the CITRA result. And you can see here we have two colors. We have the red color is the PLTAO, so that means optical platelet with EDTA tube anticoagulant, and CITRA tube is the green one, and the blue one is the platelet only by the impedance without optical technology. And you can see here all these samples has a low result for impedance for EDTA. By the way, the result is accurate with optical and CITRA. So this is very important for samples and to report these results accurate only using the EDTA sample, not using another CITRA tube. And this is the optical line or optical measurement of the platelets. And this technology is only in membrane. Also, we have one important thing is the multi-counting fold. So this is also for two kinds of samples with low count for leukocyte, leukopenia, and low counting for platelet thrombocytopenia. So in this case, for leukopenia, low WBC, the machine will do the counting by 3 times. So because we have 2 or 3 channel in our machine to count WBC. So if the machine, you can see here, if the machine or the analyzer counts WBC below 2000 by microliter cells, he will do the 3-time measurement of WBC. And as you can see here, the 3-time WBC result is more accurate than the regular one. And for platelets, if the machine find that the platelet for the impedance or other method is below than 50, the machine can do automatically the PLTO by 8 times. So here is 8 times. So with low platelets, we can report our reliable results, and is at 8 times. So we extend the measurement time, especially for platelets. And here a study I can show you. As you can see here, this is the CV. This is the repeatability or the precision for the platelet or optical platelet with low counting of the platelets. As you can see here, for the platelet with below than 20, we still have a CV below the 10%. Maybe some samples here, we have only 10 or 15, counting 10,000 for platelets, but the CV is still below than 10%. By the way, in another competitor using a special dye, only for platelets. But our reagent for platelet is the same reagent with the reticulocytes. So no need for additional reagent, only for platelets. Here, another competitor, as I said, use a special dye, special stain for platelets. By the way, we still have a false result or a high CV for low counting for the platelets. For example, this sample we have around 7%, but in PLTF in another competitor is below than 20, is around 18%. So this CV is very important, especially for low platelets counting. Now let's move to blood fluid measurement. Now we have we can count 4 kind of body fluid samples. For example, for peritoneal fluid, cerebrospinal fluid, synovial fluid, and pleural fluid, and all of kind of this body fluid, we can report 7 parameters, including WBC, RBC, total nucleate cells, and also mononucleate and polynucleate cells with the count and also the rate. And also we have other research parameters like using high fluorescences, or this kind of we can find it in the body fluid. And this body fluid analysis, no need for another add-in reagent. It's only the same reagent with the CBC and with the same technology CBC. For example, for RBC and WBC, we use optical. Also, another important parameter that we can offer with our BC6200 series using the SF Cube technology, the measurement of ANR parameter is who can is infected RBC. That is very important to know in case of malaria. So it can help us for malaria screening. This is the scattering 3D the diff channel, and you can find here this kind of cells or RBC infected by the parasite. For example, here the example of vivax for malaria, and here this is a study of a scientific study in India and China, and you can see here sensitivity and specificity is very, very high. Specificity is around 100%, and sensitivity for this parameter is around 92%. So it's very important for you if you have some case of malaria screening in laboratory. Also, as you know, we have also a solution how to increase validate, or how to help you to validate normal results or all results. Normally, this is the work way how to do for the samples. Normally, we have 2 kinds of samples. Normal samples we do validation by the system, and we can send the result to LIS. But abnormal samples, normally you should have 2 way or 3 way. The first one is some predefined rules, using some predefined rules based in some anteriority, some flag, some clinical value, clinical information, and we can do to validation, or we can move to manual validation. That means is the technician or the doctor who do the validation by only check the results and validate and send the result to Alias, or he can move the sample to a smear or slide and check by the microscopy and random and see the cells and run the results and report the result by microscopy. All of this we have a special software. By default come with the BC 6000 and 6000 machine, all BC 6000 above analyzer. We have this lab expert. We call lab expert because he is expert in laboratory, and he can help you to define your rules based on clinical value, abnormal range delta check, or all information that rules that you can set up by yourself to help you to reduce manual validation and validate all and most of positive samples only based in this that you find by yourself. And as I told you, all these rules and validation is automated. Also, with BT 6200, if we have a high workload, we can make an upgrade to 2 machines. For example, 2 BC 6200, and we call this is CAL 6000 is a benchtop automation. Or we can add a slide maker for 1 machine, and we call this is CAL 6000 also. This slide maker make the slide preparation and staining with throughput of 120 samples by slide, or the complete line is 2 hematology machine and 1 slide maker. So here we can reach 220 tests per hour for CBC and 120 slide by hour for slide maker. And based in lab expert, we can set up some rules. For example, for some specific positive patients, we can do it automatically the smear here in this machine SC120. Also, the big brother for BC 6200, we have BC 6800, sorry, 800 plus is a big machine for the throughput is around 200 tests per hour with optical RBC and also optical platelet counting using also scattergram and parameters and all information that we saw before, and also some additional information, important information. Also for this BC 6800 plus, we can switch up and scalable to CAL 8000, including modular system. As you can see here, we can install 4 machines as a maximum for CAL 8000, CAL 6800 plus. So that means 800 samples per hour as a throughput and 2 machines as a maximum for the slide maker. So that means 240 slides per hour. This is the maximum that we can see. As you can see here, it is a scalable, so we can switch it and extend it. It depends the need of the customer. So this is new one. We need to complete our hematology solution, and we recently launched our solution for digital morphology analyzer. This is very important. This is a new software because we need to make the complete solution. But why complete solution? Because we have the analyzer, we have the hematology analyzer and the slide maker, and we need a product who can see the cells and give us the image for each cell, and he can help to validate this result and also for archiving the results. And this is what we call is MC18. So here now you can see we can add this new product with CAL 8000 or CAL 6000, or only a CAL 6000 when 1 hematology analyzer with the slide maker and the digital morphology analyzer. This is only used with the slide maker. And now with this product that we call MC18, we can have around a throughput of 16 slides per hour. And as you can see here, we have, it can give us all the information about the image for the samples, especially pathologic samples. And here we can validate the results based on the machine and also based on the image. And also we have different kind of loading of the samples, all by, for example, here by batch, for each one for have, for example, 10 samples, 10 slide, or only by single slide presentation of loading. So now I want just to share with you some different sites or some customer using our hematology solution. Let's start now from South America or Latin America. This is the DASA group, one of the biggest 5 laboratory in the world. Is the top one, is the biggest one in Latin America. So we had 3 phases with this group. So we start with the DASA Scientifica Lab in Sao Paulo. This is the image of this laboratory. Now this laboratory reached around 9,000 or 10,000 tests per day, and we replace with 2 Cal 8000. We replace 12 around 11 Oriba Pentra 120 and 2 slide makers. So we have now 2 modular system for Cal 8000 by our solution now, because we have around 800 to 900 slides per day. Help them to reduce the re-exam rate from 14% to 3%. So 11% reduced, only 3% or 3 samples that need the manual validation. Also, we help them to reduce the workload for the staff, and now they switch from 20% only for the hematology to 13. So that's why we can help the lab technician or the lab staff to get more time to do more important things. And the second level, second phase, the second step, we move to install some standalone machine in different laboratories. This group in Brazil, in different cities, it was around 30 units for BC 6000 series and 41 units for BC 5150. And in the last project phase, in the third phase, we installed different big labs in this group, and now we reach 6 Cal 8000 in this laboratory, and the biggest lab now do around 12,000 tests per day. That's why you can imagine how is the workload for this laboratory and what is the trust for our solution for the hematology. This is another case also in Europe, in France. This is the Centre Hospitalier de Libourne, is near to the east of west of France city here. And this laboratory is equipped with Cal 8000 2 machine with 1 slide maker, and this laboratory must do the accreditation process with COFRAC, because all laboratory in France need to do this accreditation. Is similar like one ISO 15159. So we did the accreditation with them, and we helped them to accredit this hematology line. Also, another example from Turkey, in Istanbul, in public hospital and some clinical lab in Istanbul. As you can see here, we have around 56 hospitals using hematology solution with 12 Cal 8000 and around 90 units for BC 6000 series. And the biggest lab is there, around 10,000 tests per day, 10,000 CBC per day. So this is, you can imagine the throughput for this kind of laboratory. Also in your region in KSA, we have installation for Cal 8000 last year, Central Hospital, and also Saudi German Hospital in Al-Asir installed this year with our partner in Arabi Saudi. So the customer now is very satisfied, and we look forward for other customers. And also here some other reference sites in Saudi Arabia using our solution for BC 6000, 800, 200 and above. And here you can ask for this kind of hospitals like Family Care Hospital in Riyadh, Bagshan Hospital and Jeddah and so on. And also one thing is very important to us is the communication and the global platform, because communication is very important and share information is very important. We have a special event only for hematology. We call Hematalk. This Hematalk, we collect around 88 country and region. So more than 170 participants can meet in Shenzhen or some place in China or another place, just to meet each other and to have a platform to discuss communication, scientific communication, and also to hear voice. This is voice of customer, because very important for us, and also it's important for you as a customer to learn from the experience to each others and to know what kind of technology used in other countries and how is the process used in other countries. This is very important for us. That's why we create a special event only for hematology in Hematalk. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19 last year and this year we did it only by online activities, but we hope starting from next year, if this pandemic is under control, we can back to the on-site activity. Also, we have a big database of publication and scientific papers from Mindray. So we have around 15 academic papers only for the 6,000 handled solution, and also scientific papers. So if you need any scientific paper publication or any article, we can share it with you. A pleasure for us to share it with you. Here is only some example. For example, here is the malaria screening poster in India, or some paper to check the performance and clinical from the comparison, and studied the comparison between other competitors. And here also a special study with the compatibility of abnormal cells detection in BC 6800 plus. And here you can find the flag, and the important flag, sensitivity and specificity, very important, especially for the blast and kernel signature flag, so, or an RBC flag. So here, just an example, if you need any paper or any scientific publication, don't hesitate to ask us or ask our partner in your region. This is all of my presentation for today. A big honor for me and a pleasure for me to share with you our solution for hematology. And if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this information. Now, let's move to questions and answer. So please feel free to ask and type your questions. So I have two questions for Dr. Shukri. So the first question is, during the saline replacement, how do you ensure that you have not removed some RBCs during the replacement? And the second question is, when doing the manual platelets estimation from the slide, on what basis do you decide whether to multiply by 15 or 20?
Yes. Actually, this is a good question. The first question, during plasma replacement, in case of hemoglobin turbidity, how to make sure not to remove the RBCs. Actually, this is very important. And when after doing the heavy centrifugation of the sample, and when we come to remove the plasma, try not to touch the buffy coat. The buffy coat separating the plasma from the cells by moving the bibetter on the side edges, not in the center of the tube, to avoid touching the buffy coats. The second maneuver, you can, if you are not making sure to avoid touching the buffy coat, you can leave a very thin rim of plasma above the buffy coat to avoid touching the cells and the buffy coat. And to confirm that your separation is excellent, you have to compare the counts of RBCs of white blood cells and the platelets before and after separation. If it is identical or near to be identical, so your separation is excellent. And by the way, when we come to reporting the hemoglobin, you have to report the hemoglobin from the result coming after separation, after plasma replacement. But other parameter, you can take these parameters like white blood cell count, platelet count, for example, hematocrit, RBCs count, you can take it from the original results. So the only result to be taken from the sample after plasma replacement is the result that will be affected by hemoglobin measurement itself, which is hemoglobin, MSH, and MSHC. This is the answer for the first question. The second one, when we are doing a platelet estimation and coming to multiply by the factor 15,000 or 20,000, 15 or 20, actually the international figure is to multiply by 20. But from our local experience in my institution, when we apply 20, we found there is a little bit overestimation of the platelet. So we verify the another factor, which is 15, and this is more suitable in our local institution, and this is belonging to you to use the international figure. This is 20. The factor is 20. This is the answer of the second question. Yes, I think there is yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shukri. I have another questions, please.
Yes.
How can we do CBC diagram verification?
Yes, I think you mean that how we are going to do the CBC flag verification. When we come to do, yes. When we are going to do the CBC flag verification, you have to set up your proposal. First of all, you have to select the reference method that you will use. The reference method here is the peripheral blood smear examination of the CBC. Number two, you have to select the flags that you are going to verify. You can select all the coming flag from the CBC analyzer, or you can select the flags that have clinical utility for your diagnosis. They have a good application in your diagnosis. And going to the procedure, and the third item is that you have to select or decide the sample size. The sample size you can select, for example, 100, 200, 500. This is a prospective study. You are going to set up, and the more the number that you are going to select, the more accurate result that you are going to retrieve from the statistics. Finally, you are going to compare the results obtained for each peripheral blood smear from examination and from the flags coming from the CBC analyzer. And finally, you will do the Excel sheets of the comparison, and through any statistical program, you can calculate the accuracy and the sensitivity. The accuracy is very, very important for the flag. After that one, you can verify. And by the way, this is the requirement by for the international accreditation bodies like CAP or ISO or CBC. They need to verify your CBC flag, and after verification, you can rely on this flag in your lab diagnosis.
It is clear. Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, another questions, please. Would you consider CBC result of patient with polycythemia CBC it's over range, and would you correct it?
Actually, when we are talking about CBC with over range, and its correction, we are talking about two issues. The first one is considering the linearity or analytical measuring range of the instrument, and this is a unique and specific figures for each instrument. Each instrument has its unique linearity, and the higher analytical measuring range, this will be good for you, and the instrument will be of more clinical usefulness. So we are talking about here the accuracy of the result and its reporting. So whatever the cause of increase of the RBCs, is it due to polycythemia, rubra vera, or secondary polycythemia? If the count of the range or exceed the linearity of the instrument, here you are not able to report these results from the instrument, and here you have to have, as it is unreliable, and here you have to put the RBC count within the analytical measuring range by doing the dilution, and then you have to multiply by the dilution factor to report your result.
Thank you, Dr. Shukri. Please, Mr. Yunus, these questions. Is it possible to make a body fluid differential?
Yes, normally, as I show in my presentation, for the body fluid, especially for WBC, you have two kinds of you have reportable parameters, and in this reportable parameters, you have two kinds of WBC. WBC or polynucleate cells. That's we have cells with polynucleases like neutrophil, and mononucleate cells. That's why that cells with only one nucleic cells. And also we have other parameters for the research. We use parameters. In this research parameters, machine give us differentiation like lymphocyte, neutrophil, and other cells that we can find out at the lymphocyte.
Thank you, Mr. Yunus, for your answer. Do you have any questions? I have a questions also for Mr. Yunus, please.
Okay.
How can machine differentiate between infected RBCs and RBCs inclusion?
Yeah, this is very important question, because normally, as you know, the RBC, the morphology is nothing inside. So, but with the infected RBC, normally we have some parasites inside, like Plasmodium vivax. And with optical lines, with the SFQ technology based with the granular complexity inside the cells, and also the acid nucleic inside the cells, we can find two kinds of cells: RBC with information, RBC with inclusion, RBC with the high acid nucleic cells. Normally should be not, and that's why we can make the differentiation. And this kind of cells, the machine give you the alarm or research parameter as an infected RBC, and they compare these results with the total RBC, INR, the total RBC, and give you the ratio to compare with this.
Thank you, Mr. Yunus. I have another question, please. Is a new MC80 morphology scalable as per need of the laboratory, or, for example, CellaVision allow 150 or 200 WBCs count? Can we adjust as per need of the labs?
Yes, we can adjust per need of lab. Normally, as a basic, we have a 200, but we have a higher count of WBC than CellaVision. Now we launched as a 200 or 300, but our R&D development, we are trying to reach a higher level, 800. So now actually we can reach more than 800, 200.
Thank you so much. I think there is no any questions. So I would like to thank you all for this attendance. Please, we love feedback. Can you just scan the QR code below and complete the questionnaires? Or you can go directly to chat inbox. you can just click the link and fill the questionnaires, please.
I get the exact information about counting against the television. We have from 50 to 500. So we can reach now at 500, but we are trying to move more than 500 until 1,000. We need to wait for our R&D to confirm it. But for until now, the confirmed is until 500, from 50 to 500. That's to give you the right answer and the correct answer.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
We love precise.
Yes, sure. Please scan the barcode and fill the questionnaires, or you can click the link at the chat box. So thank you so much all. So welcome to follow us for further information or any updatings in our social media for Mindray Facebook and our link in Abdullah Fuad Company and Mindray also. And see you all and have a good night all.